Now let's bring in the MEC for community safety here in the Western Cape, Dan Plateau, into this conversation. We just heard from the Police Minister Bekele saying that it is not ideal and that the army will not be deployed in crime hotspots here in the Western Cape. Mr. Plateau, the Minister of Police, saying that the army and the soldiers rather are not an option to fight crime in gang-ridden hotspots. You work very closely with these communities that face crime on a daily basis. What do you have to say to that, MEC?
Two things. The first is the army was previously successfully deployed by his predecessors on the Cape Flats. Then all these constitutional issues was not at play. Secondly, his immediate predecessor, Fikile Mbalula, last year when he was Minister of Police, did sanction for the army to be deployed on the Cape Flats, waiting for the signature of the president, at the time President Zuma. What's the difference now? At the end of the day, it is not what a minister wants must happen on the Cape Flats. It's what the public of the greater Cape Town want. Looking at the severity of the situation on the Cape Flats, the police is currently inadequate to deal with the skirts of gangsterism, the skirts of ongoing day-to-day shootings on the Cape Flats.
Now, MEC, a lot of people actually bring in this idea that the army is not particularly trained to deal with people as opposed to the police.
The army, when they were deployed years ago, was also not trained. We're saying we don't ask for the army to come and shoot. We don't ask for the army to come and draw the Air 5s and the Air 4s and kill innocent and people and that sort of thing. We ask for the army to be a force multiplier to the current police force, to cordon off areas, to make areas safe, to enable the South African police services to do their investigative work, to do their raids, when they raid blocks of flats, when they do random search stops and searches and that sort of thing. That is what we fully understand. The army is trained to shoot. But at the end of the day, looking at what's happening in the westernized world, in other countries, France, Britain, Belgium, and so forth, the army is currently successfully deployed in those countries to assist the police. That is what the Democratic Alliance is asking for. We need a force to assist them. A research done by my Standing Committee of Community Safety, led by Mireille Wenger, find that 85% of our police stations in the Western Cape is grossly under-resourced. We just do not have enough manpower on the Cape Flats to contain the situation. Our people is under siege. Our people is traumatized. The other night I visited some communities like Ocean View. Yesterday I visited Guguletu. All over the same message. It doesn't matter if it is a township or a Cape Flats community. The issues is exactly the same. They cannot continue to live like this anymore. The fact of the matter is, when will national leadership begin to listen? And my message on behalf of the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape is, it is the public of Cape Town. Look, I've seen even ANC people down here. Even doesn't matter the political party you belong to, the message is exactly the same. Everybody feels the same pain and the same skirts of violence and that sort of thing. And our people is dying every day like flies. That must stop. But our police force currently cannot do it alone. That is why we're asking for support from a different source.
That is the MEC for community safety here in the Western Cape. Now I'm just going to bring in Bongikosi Matikizela, the MEC for human settlements. We know that crime mostly is rooted in areas that are faced with a lot of poverty, and human settlement often is one of the reasons why we see a lot of protests in the streets here in the Western Cape. Now, MEC, do you think the DA has done enough to make sure on its side that crime is fought?
Look, I think to echo the sentiments of the Minister of Police, it must be very clear that this march is not about grandstanding. This is about a genuine call from the people of the Western Cape who are saying, in some instances, we can't even have a meal on the table because of the possibility of being hit by a straight bullet. Now, that resembles a war zone. in those communities. That is why we are calling for the national government to play its part, because policing is a national competence. We are under-resourced, as the minister said. I mean, if you look at the resident to police ratio, 628 to 1. I mean, if you compare that nationally, it's 369 to 1. That is saying to us, we need assistance from other sources like the army. And that is why it's quite puzzling for me that there's this about 10, because there's a new minister, because the previous minister did commit to assist the Western Cape by deploying the army.
Now, the police minister has said that the army will not be deployed in this crime hotspot, but yet you will be marching to Nyanga Police Station, which we very well know that it is very much under-resourced. What is the DA on its own doing as the governing party in this province to make sure that, you know, people are not faced with so much crime in gang-ridden hotspots?
I think we must separate the two things. One of the challenges that we are experiencing in the Western Cape, one is the rate of population growth. I mean, this province grew by 100% in 20 years. That's unprecedented. Now, if you look at how we spend taxpayers' money, because we are dealing here with the issue of supply, that is far less than what the demand is. Now, but if you look at the available resources, how the DA spend its budget, I mean, we are by far the better province than any other province in South Africa. But the biggest challenge that we are facing is that with the resources that we have and with the economy that is not growing, we cannot be able to keep up with the demand that we are seeing in the Western Cape.
And lastly, Mmusi, a lot of people have been actually saying, even on social media, that this is just part of party politics. Now, the DA coming up and saying they want the deployment of the army, basically just alluding to the fact that a lot of people see this as party politics.
No, I think that's a generalization to say a lot of people. I mean, it depends where those people are from, because the majority of people in the Western Cape are saying to us, we need the national government to deploy the army here to do exactly what the minister has said. And we understand exactly what is the role of the army. We've used the army before. We had a stabilization unit here in Manenberg, and the rate of shooting decreased dramatically. That is what we are calling for. This is, as I said initially, it's not about grandstanding. We are calling the national government to fulfill its mandate and constitutional responsibility to assist this province to deal with crime, because policing is a national competence.
Thank you very much. The MEC for Human Settlements here in the Western Cape, as well as the MEC for Community Safety, Dan Plato, just giving their word on the deployment of the army in crime hotspots here in the Western Cape. Now, in a few minutes' time, the leader of the Democratic Alliance, Mmusi Maimane, will be arriving, and the march will indeed get underway and proceed to Nyanga, where they'll be handing over a memorandum. Back to you in studio, Michelle.
All right.